on this hacking scandal, I want to bring in journalist Glenn Greenwald. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his reports on classified documents leaked by the NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. He's also been highly critical of U.S. national security policy, including the country's mass surveillance programs. He's now a co-founder and journalist with The Intercept, and with us tonight out of Rio de Janeiro. Thank you, sir. We know that the FBI is investigating this hack, Glenn, and it is reported that FBI officials believe it was the work of the Russian government. How difficult would that be to prove?
Well, I would hope that the lesson from the Iraq War and other similar debacles is that the more consequential an accusation is, the more evidence we should require before we actually get rid of our skepticism and believe it. Even in that report that we just heard that you played, although there were a lot of people accusing Trump of being linked to Russia and Russia being behind the link, the reporter said accurately there's no hard evidence that links Russia to this hack. There's an interview this morning in Slate with former high-level Justice Department official, current Harvard Law professor Jack Goldsmith, in which he says, quote, "The truth is there's no public evidence linking Russia to this hack." So there's a long history in the United States, quite ugly history, of trying to link political opponents to the Kremlin and accuse them of having disloyalty to the U.S. because they're controlled by Russia.
Right.
And that seems to be a lot of what this is as well.
Okay, should this turn out to be Russian intelligence services, would it surprise you?
It wouldn't surprise me because it's very common for countries to hack into each other's computer systems. The reporting that we were able to do as part of the Snowden archive showed that the U.S. frequently does this. Professor Goldsmith this morning listed all of the democratic elections in which the U.S. has interfered in order to get the results it wanted. So it wouldn't shock me if Russia was engaged in cyber attacks on the U.S., but I just wouldn't believe it either until I see actual hard evidence that it's true.
How widespread, Glenn, is the rigging of major political campaigns globally?
I mean, there's certainly all kinds of examples during the Cold War of both the United States through the CIA and the Soviet Union through the KGB trying to interfere in the political affairs of other countries in order to generate outcomes that it wants. But typically when that's done, it's done a lot more professionally and a lot more competently than seems to be the case here, where supposedly this really sophisticated, nefarious, high-level Russian agency did a hack on the DNC, but failed to cover its footprints. That seems a little difficult to believe, but it's certainly common that the U.S. and Russia, both under the Soviet Union and since its fall, try to get information on other countries, hack into computer systems, and manipulate political outcomes.
Right, and we can agree that somebody infiltrated these DNC emails, and we're not talking about motivation here, we're just talking about whether the Russians were capable of it, and you've suggested that they are. How difficult is it to prevent that rigging of a political campaign, the infiltration of, for example, the DNC? Certainly the FBI has warned of it, or U.S. intelligence agencies have warned of it. How difficult is it to prevent it? Is it possible or impossible these days?
It's not easy, but it is doable. Of course, one of the issues with the other email scandal of this campaign, which was the one about Hillary Clinton installing a server at her house, was that sometimes people who have the responsibility to safeguard important information are careless or reckless about protecting it and leave it vulnerable to these kinds of attacks. Ironically, there was an article in BuzzFeed about 4 months ago that said that both the RNC and the DNC are failing to take important steps to protect themselves from cyber attacks, and one of the emails that leaked, so ironically, was a DNC official mocking BuzzFeed for suggesting that they don't take important enough steps to protect their information. So it's not like there's anything that's 100% foolproof, but there definitely are steps that organizations should and can take in order to protect this information from being hacked.